Okay, I should start the interview by saying thank you so much for finding the time to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should start at the very beginning. So, how did your love of theatre begin?
Almost instantaneously, Rhys. From a very young age, I was grew up
Hmm.
in a world of the arts and of theatre and film and an appreciation for those things. Trips to the theatre,
Hmm.
primarily musicals. My love of plays has developed in personal
Hmm.
life and not private life. It's no great shame, but but it was not something that my family um, enjoyed necessarily or wanted to spend the money on. Not
Hmm.
to get the violin out too early, but as a northern family, we were either the touring musicals or one big trip down to London a year,
Hmm.
and that would, the trains and the
Yeah.
meal and sometimes the hotel. That couldn't be a play that
Yeah.
I wanted to go see because I wasn't spending any of this money, and also my grandma Pat, who adores the arts deeply
Hmm.
and has inbred in me such a love of the arts and has written off the entire medium. So I mean, and then she describes these plays, and they saw The Graduate,
Hmm.
um, which they did as a play. And I've read the adaptation since I love the film. It's one of my favorite films. And I've read the adaptation. I think the adaptation is solid, but not amazing. But the
Hmm.
way that they staged it, and I believe that this is common for a lot of stagings of it, was that the entire thing was wardrobes. And so, and then very minimal set. I mean, this, and she didn't care for that. She still doesn't care for it now. We went and saw Sunset Boulevard, and it was absolutely astounding. And she was like, could have done with a set. So, and that, and the opinions of my mum and grandma have inbred in me
Hmm.
a lot of my theatrical taste, but also has developed since then. But we are opening a play on Friday as of this
Hmm.
recording, and at the back of my mind constantly is I do not want to bore Sarah Carruthers and Patricia Johnson. So I think that sort of this is making them sound a little bit ignorant, but they're incredibly intelligent people. But that sort of appeal to a broader audience
Hmm.
as always. I'm probably leading into your next question already. I do that often, but the entertainment factor
Hmm.
and the idea that if this is the only play somebody sees that year or that quarter,
Hmm.
that they have a full and
Hmm.
good evening is certainly not lost on me when I write, when I direct, when I produce, or if I'm in a piece.
Hmm.
That is always, I'm a little bit whorish in that sense, Rhys. My first instinct is always I have to entertain this crowd no matter what.
Hmm. I suppose it's because, like you said, it could be their only sort of trip. Families could have been
Yeah.
spending the whole year saving up, and you are what they're going to see.
And that comes into affordability as well.
Hmm.
I We are obviously growing a network with my production company
Hmm.
now, and I always and we're going to see a lot of shows because we like supporting things. But I always note ticket pricing,
Hmm.
and I was at a great show last night. A wonderful production team called Foundations, who I've worked with, and I thought, and I went there, and the ticket price was low, and the work was better than the ticket
Hmm.
price warranted. But
Yeah.
it's not. I'm seeing some companies charging a lot for
Hmm.
and let's be frank, although we're staging good work, none of this is entirely professional,
Hmm.
and I do keep that in mind as well.
Hmm. Totally. And obviously, then skipping forward a few years, obviously the first time I've seen you perform was in Deepfake. So,
Yes,
what drew
yes,
you
you
into that
yes.
project? What sort of made you want to get involved?
It was a series of different things.
Hmm.
The wonderful Rian Holmes, who you've had
Fantastic.
on your show, um, is a dear friend of 7 years. We did the
Well.
math the other day, which is spooky. Um, it, the slow crawl of time is coming for us all. But and so when we developed Righton Productions, which Rian is a part of, um, Rhian was obviously in the mold, and then Jazz Suzanka, who's the other half of the half of the triptych, which isn't actually right, is it? The other third of Righton was studying at Wales Conservatoire, Royal Welsh, and she had to do a project, and the basis of the project was staging a piece. Well, that's how
Yeah.
what she made of it. And Rhian, being a Welsh up and coming artist, obviously felt ideal,
Hmm.
and so we staged a early
Mm.
working of Rhian's play Deepfake. I was going to be. Rhian likes me as an actor, so I should be a little bit more immodest and less immodest. But I was already going to be down there as a producer. Obviously, this was unpaid work.
Hmm.
There were a few roles that Rhian could have slotted me into. But yes, I was asked slash forced myself into the production, and was there as I was there as an actor and sort of unnamed producer.
Mm.
But no, it was very interesting. It was
Yeah,
very
and
exciting.
obviously it was a work in progress of reading,
Yeah.
staging, as you said. So as a performer, then how does that change your approach? Obviously someone hasn't done that role before. You are originating the role. How does that change your approach to the character?
It does and it doesn't. I don't want to completely shut down the question, but I don't think I would ever. The script is the script that I'm working on
Yeah.
at that moment. So
Hmm.
I don't necessarily, not to shut down the question, but I don't think if I was given a third draft,
Mm.
which it was a third draft because I read the initial draft, which she sent it to me the months before, but I don't think I would necessarily be approaching it any different than I
Mm.
would any other script or any other character. But yeah, no, sorry, it was exciting to be
Mm.
at such an early stage. And if and when deepfake develops, I'm
Hmm.
sure I will be able to retrospectively
Hmm.
look at the journey. But yeah, no, but I don't think, and to be honest with you, it was at such a full stage anyway.
Mm.
And as a producer, I was very keen. We go back to the money thing. I was very keen that although it's work in progress and although it's just a rehearsed reading, people are paying to watch
Mm.
an hour of something and that we shouldn't force them to watch a rough draft. And so I
Yeah.
was very keen working with Rhian and with Jazz, and we noted it. And because no matter what they're watching, and it obviously helped Rhian as a writer as
Yeah.
well to sort of force her to draft it a bit more. But it was at a very full stage as a script anyway. So I didn't feel I was filling any
Mm.
gaps in the writing or approaching it any different way.
Oh, fantastic. And obviously, you mentioned earlier that you are a writer yourself. So, how did your sort of writing journey begin? How did you get into that side of things?
From a very young age, I don't want to get the violin out, but writing is a hobby that you can do on your own.
Hmm.
And although I had some friends as a child, that sort of it created what's I think it was Shonda Rhimes, and I don't have a lot in common with an African American woman TV producer, but we are both writers, and she was talking about how writing is the only thing in this industry that you can do without having
Yeah.
needing money and needing a facility. A director has to be a part of a production
Yeah.
that is being put on, and whether they are developing it, an actor has to be paid for acting or asked to act in a production.
Mm.
A writer can grab a notepad and start writing immediately. And from a very early age, I was devouring films, and then this led to reading screenplays. This led to reading plays, and I was always very creative as a child, and that
Mm.
became writing plays and writing screenplays. I spent a very long time, and I was talking, funnily enough, I was talking about this with Rhian the other day. I spent a good 10 years writing a lot of screenplays. My first love will always be film and always
Hmm.
has been, because it is, again, when we talk about art, I can put on a film tonight. I can't put on Imelda Staunton. Well, I can watch the NT Live of Follows, but
Mm.
I can't have Imelda Staunton in my living room, unfortunately. And so I've loved film. And so I have in my database, they're all there, 20 screenplays.
Wow.
And again, to be immodest, they're pretty solid. I
Mm.
mean, they range in quality. in deepest, darkest COVID with Rian and Jazz and many others. We, with nothing else to do, we would sit and read these
Mm.
screenplays, and the joy of looking over at my friend Lauren on that first reading and her mouthing to me, "It's actually good. I thought it was going to be shit." Because I now look at this. I obviously have the blind arrogance to say, "Yeah, no, this will be good. Let's all sit and read my screenplay." But can you imagine being dragged to somebody? It is the great Rick and Morty joke.
Yeah.
You have to read, you have to hear my screenplay. She's a busy woman in a busy world. We cut to black 10 weeks later, 10 weeks earlier, sorry. Which I still hate. Every TV show. But I got to a point really, and I was writing a lot of plays concurrently, and because I was writing to either medium to a sort of a growing quality as I got better and better, it was always content dictates form. So it was always, I'd have the story, and then okay, this would be a better film, this would be a better play. And I knew at that stage, frankly, that none of these were going to be put on. I had that blind faith that they would eventually down the road. But I was writing 3-act, 3-hour
Wow.
concentration camp dramas that, I mean, with casts of 15. No,
Wow.
that's not true. That's like a cast of 12. But I was like, this is not going to get staged until I'm, 40 and hopefully incredibly successful. And it's at the Olivier. And same with the screenplays. And I got to a point creatively where, which led to the starting of my production company of, I could spend now my next 10 nights or whatever it is writing a sci-fi screenplay. And that frankly wouldn't go anywhere right now, if, let's be bleak, if ever. Whereas I can write a play that can be staged right now, and we can work on that. And so I haven't written a screenplay in a very, very long time. I've been very focused on writing plays that are moldable and could be staged, and that has bettered my writing in some ways, and I think made my writing a little bit duller in some ways, because I am now writing towards the budgets that we currently have, and although I push those, because that's another thing. I love ensembles, and I love far-reaching things. And the first play we did was a cast of 8, and was 2.5 hours, and had a big long musical segment. And I think it all goes back to that entertainment factor. I really do think it all goes back to giving people a full meal. I love giving people a full meal. And so the writing, but again, it's always content dictates form. If the story requires it, then the production can mold, and such as that. Working on a project, writing on something now, and that was entirely based. I don't really get writer's block, Rhys.
Okay.
I'm very open tap like that. I can just keep writing. And so I asked Jazz, my, co-producer, but she's the lead producer of Righton, and I said, okay, give me some bullet points.
Yeah.
And she was like, what, anything? I said, yeah, anything. And so I'm working on that right now, and that's developed into something that hopefully we'll look at in the new year. It had Rian excited. I told her the plot, and she was excited, which is always, Rian's a very good bellwether, because I will come to her. Rian is the best noter in the goddamn world, and she doesn't mince words, and it's brilliant. And as I've said to her all sorts of stuff through the years, and she will say, oh no, it's good, but it's just, I can't get into this one. Just couldn't do it. Which is the difference in our taste and why we're great friends.
And obviously one of the shows that you've written along that journey is Are You There, Mother? So where did that come from, and what was that inspired by?
That is the actual weirdly enough, that is the opposite of content dictates form. That is just a story I came up with, and characters I came up with, and I wrote it for there was a BBC comedy pilot thing, so I wrote a 30-minute version there. There was a 10-minute do a scene thing, so I wrote it as a 2-man play there. And then the opportunity arose through Philip Stokes at 412 Productions and Lawrence Batley Theatre for a project called Northern Fanfare, which was going to be 3 nights, and it was three um, quote unquote work in progress, but to a professional level.
Yeah.
Like they were ready to be shown shows that could be developed further, but they were ready to be presented. Staged in the Lawrence Batley Theatre's cellar area, which is used for sort of fringe work or touring
Mm.
smaller cast work. And so again, the content dictates for me. It had to be an hour, and it had to be a one man show. And he said, "Do you have any one man shows written?" And I hadn't, because I genuinely never appealed to me.
Mm.
And I, I have many friends who scoff at that idea, and many people who don't actually know me who scoff at that idea. And then obviously, I am a great entertainer and love crowds and love a baying audience and love a big comedy and all that
Mm.
sort of thing. But I do love working with people, and whether that is just with one person, with Will, with the play we did Ronnie and Clive, or whether that is a cast of 8 with Pageant, or a cast of 5 that we currently have, I love working with people. And it also became apparent that I wasn't really going to have a director either, so it was going to be literally written by, directed by, and starring me. And again, the alarm bells went off of, I just hate having to say that out loud.
Mhm.
And the project has got legs, and we are taking it further afield next year, where a director is going to come in and
Mm.
mold a bit more. But it was for this initial presentation, it was going to have to be written, directed, and starring me. So I was worried in that sense, and I thought, okay, Are You There, Mother? Okay, that could be a story. I had another thing that I was developing years ago, which was called Method to His Madness, and it was an actor, a very self-serious sort of 70s Olivier style. And it was slowly but surely he started murdering to help his method acting. And I didn't want it to be sensationalist, and I wanted it to be darkly funny, which led to, half an hour, if not more, of realistic writing about 70s theatre, which clearly is not exciting for many a person. So the draft of Are You There, Mother was written incredibly quickly, and I'm not a sort of, but I always write fairly quickly,
Mm.
so I never see that as a sign of anything. But it came out very quickly. I thought, okay, this could be interesting, and it it felt ripe for a one man show. In that, I'll say this, I don't care. I This is going to be some sort of Ricky Gervais thing. Don't worry. I say things that nobody else says, but I in my head were my sort of list of, you just don't want a one man show with a rack of hats and a person doing a load of voices.
Mm.
Again, I'm contradicting myself, because the show that I did before this was a two-man show where we did a load of hats and a load of different voices. So the idea of, but I guess I'm sharing it, the blows
Yeah.
with Will there. But I thought, okay, this only has two characters really, and okay, and so I could delve into that rather than it being just. I, my go-to joke is that the first thing people always say after the show, at a one-man show, and it doesn't matter whether it's Jodie Comer in Prima Facie, or the wonderful Rosamund Pike in Inter Alia, or whatever it might be, they always say, "How did you learn all those lines? Wasn't she amazing? Didn't she? Wasn't she? I can't believe it was just her."
Mm.
And I was very fortunate, and I think the reason why I Their Mother has been so successful for us, and hopefully will be continuously, is that a lot of people are talking about the story and the characters.
Yeah.
And then, Rhys, they do still congratulate me, but they're talking about the plot,
Hmm.
and that was very nice to
Yeah.
hear. That I genuinely never wanted it to be the Thomas Carruthers
Yeah.
showcase. I wanted it to be I Them, or the play, and the character of Vincent, and the character of Martha and Prudy, and that's been
Mm.
uh, the review so far, and I think it'll happen again when we take it down to
Mm.
Camden in August. Less than, oh grief, no, it's yes, a month today. Can you? Yes, a month to the day of recording, Reese. I will be doing the final 5 minutes of the show as we
Wow.
speak. Isn't that spooky? There
But
you
you
go.
open the show in kind of a unique way. There's a monologue, the answer, tell, pray, sort of
Mm.
thing. Obviously, it's all monologue, but that sort of speech.
Yes.
And obviously, that is a reference to the Arthur Ford con man, Harry Houdini's widow thing. So, what made you want to include that? Where did that sort of the integration of that come from?
Well, lots of I'm known as a little bit of a bleak man.
Okay.
I'm also I'm incredibly optimistic, but when it comes to death and life, I mean, my mother is a deeply, not necessarily a religious person, but deeply spiritual person, and the story I'd tell is that she has a beautiful necklace from a past family
Mm.
member, and she keeps it in the drawer by the desk. And one night, the drawer was sort of slightly ajar, and she was like, "It's a sign." She loves signs,
Mm.
and I always say the sort of same blunt, maybe horrible, maybe not thing of, if you know great grandma Mona could speak to us, do you not think she'd say, "I love you, I'm happy, I'm safe," not just slightly knocking the jar over,
Yeah.
and so I'm an incredibly negative and positive person in the same regard. And the Houdini story, so this is a true thing about, and the play doesn't necessarily go explore it greatly, but it's used as a tool
Mm.
for a different story, was that Houdini greatly believed that a lot of spiritualists were taking advantage of the grieving.
Hmm.
And frankly, I feel there's a
Yeah.
lot of that now. I
Yeah.
am very, very harsh on that. And so Houdini gave her a fake message and told her to do 10, not a fake message, a real message, and told her to do 10 mediums, do 10 seances
Mm.
over 10 years. And if they give you this message, then
Yeah.
the afterlife is real and spiritualism is real. And the legend goes that the 10th one they did, there was a thunder strike. And so she stopped doing them because she didn't know whether that was a sign or not.
Oh.
So even this hard-bitten woman who's been trained by her
Mm.
incredibly negative, uh, incredible artisan husband was slightly triggered, was slightly convinced, by a lightning strike. Um, and I don't want to give away, the first sort of twist in the plot, but what would you do if
Mm.
you actually knew there was an afterlife? If you knew
Yeah.
there was an afterlife right now with all of your loved ones, with everybody right there, and it was, better than this, what would you do? And that somebody has a decision about that about 10 minutes into the play, and then the play goes from there. So lots of different angles, that sort of commodification of
Mm.
grief is definitely part of it, especially as the play goes on and a relationship develops between Vincent and Prudence, and that commodification of grief is certainly part of it. And the Houdini story is just a fascinating, fun little
Mm.
story that I think sets it up well and goes from there.
Mm. And obviously, you've mentioned it's a one man show, but obviously, you as we talked about, you wrote it as well. So, what is it like writing and performing, sort of wearing those two hats at the same time, as well as obviously directing as well, being your sort of pseudo director? How have you found all those things combining?
The directing really, the directing kind of has happened by osmosis. I don't
Yeah.
think I've not obviously not sat down with myself and had any decisions. And to be honest with you, I'm just so focused on the lines.
Mm.
It's genuinely the
Yeah.
hardest thing. Again, I'm not an underwater welder, but or a coal miner, but it is the hardest thing I've done with lines with acting.
Yeah.
Because I have these little. I normally have my cue. They're downstairs for the speech, but I have my cue cards,
Mm.
and I do my cue cards once a night, and I'm very good with lines that way. And it's the first thing I do, and obviously the writing out of the whole thing is the first
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
cue in a way. But this just had to learn it in a whole block, and I did it, listening to it, and so it's the developing, and the script has changed very little
Mm.
following performance, and I think that sort of has informed everything as well. And there is a journey, so focusing on that journey and not telegraphing it, but also not
Mm.
underlying it, so it is without uh, without comes as a complete surprise by the end of the play. But it's the focus on
Mm.
definitely the differences of the characters, which is easy because one's a man, one's a woman, and obviously they have different voices. But
Mm.
that differentiation, and also the play deals with a lot of comedy, um, but also ends on with quite an emotional turn,
Mm,
not to give much away,
totally.
without sacrificing the comedy by the very end. But and so finding that as well,
Mm,
and touching that journey without
mm,
sacrificing it for the big laugh, which
mm.
obviously I would say is my go-to. I do love a big laugh, Rhys.
Love
I've
to
always have
entertain.
and always will. Yeah, who doesn't?
So we are coming to the end of my questions, but I do have a couple more. So I know we've talked about the show and the inspirations behind it, but how would you describe Are You There, Mother to someone who's not seen it before?
Are You There, Mother is a darkly comic one-man show about a Yorkshire actor
Hmm.
who ends up in a psychological um, dependency
Hmm.
with a woman he was hired to help with her grief. And it is darkly funny. It is very northern. Um, it is surprisingly emotional. And at the end of the day, it is a, a good, solid story. I was very fortunate. Um, Philip Stokes, who I said produced the
Hmm.
show originally, and we were about to tech it, and the previous show, which was also great. So
Yeah.
shows can be anything, but had a lot of smoke and a lot of lights and a lot of sound,
Oh.
and the tech had overrun a little bit, and we came in, and Phil said to the tech guy, he said, "Don't. This will be fine. This would just work with just Tom in the room." And that was very nice to hear, and also I think sells the show very well. I
Mm.
do. We do have lights. I don't just have the fluorescents
Total
on.
blackout the
Yeah.
whole way through.
Um, so we give them. We even give them earmuffs on the way in, so they can just zone in when they want. But it, it is at the also structurally one guy just telling a very
Mm.
interesting story, and as it develops and moves from there, and frankly, we've had two amazing performances of it so far. Sold out in Huddersfield and was very, very, very close to selling out, but I can't officially say that it was
Yeah.
in London, and we're very fortunate to be taking it. The other thing is that so many people have said it's ripe for Fringe.
Mm.
And we don't have the funds to take it to Edinburgh this year, but we're at the wonderful Camden Fringe
Hmm.
this year at the Hen and Chicken, our London home, we like to say, for two performances on the 13th and 14th of August at 9 p.m. and the Etc. Theatre on the 13th of August at 3 p.m. for a matinee performance for those of you who can't
Hmm.
make the nights. And we're very happy to bring it to a Fringe setting, which, from a producer's point of view, is
Yeah.
how it was built, so that
Yeah.
we have a Fringe show in our rep. We love these. I
Mm.
mean, we're doing it later this week. We're very excited, but it's 5 actors and it's 2.5 hours and it's a big legal drama. And we're bringing that to London in October. Conflict of Interest on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of October at the Hen and Chicken.
Hmm.
But we can't take that to Edinburgh anytime soon. So we wanted a Fringe show in our
Mm.
rep, and we're very fortunate with the
Mm.
what again, that sounds out. I shouldn't say that. We're very fortunate with how it's been received so far.
Mm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and if people want to sort of learn more about the show or get tickets, where can they find you and where can they stay up to date with the show?
So I'm Thomas Carruthers. So you've got my Instagram
Hmm.
handle. My company is Righton Productions. So the first play we ever did was set in a town called Righton, so it felt apt
Hmm.
to make it the name of the production company. That's Righton, Righton Productions. You'll find us on Facebook. Rian runs the TikTok, the
Hmm.
wonderful Rian runs the TikTok, and many other things. The Facebook, the Instagram, and for Are You There, Mother, you can find them through the Camden Fringe website
Hmm.
for all three dates and events, and then for the Hen and Chickens website for Conflict of Interest, our legal drama in October. Well, I'll have to come back on and bring Rian, who plays a
Yeah.
wonderful Southern belle in this one, Reese. So
Oh, that'd be
we'll have to
fantastic.
come. We'll have to come back on for October and flog that one as well.
Yeah, in character, I would love.
Look, I think nobody's enjoying it more than her. She the thing with Rian is, so we know I wrote the play 2 years ago or whatever it
Mm.
was, and she noted the first draft, and this was before we even knew we were going to stage it.
Hmm.
And she said in the notes, I feel like that character, is blending a little bit with the other one. Maybe it's a different accent, maybe it's a different, and obviously I'm quite camp and entertaining myself. So so making her a outrageous Southern belle came
Mm.
quite easily. And now her note has obviously paid off in abundance, and I can't help but feel that she's played the long game so that she could do this faux Andy McDowell thing she's doing, which is she's great at doing.
Fabulous. So my final question is, what advice do you have for young creatives looking to do what you do?
Just right,
Hmm.
really just right. I've written and from a very, very young age, and the more you write, the better you'll get.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying I'm Shakespeare or anything, but I'm better because I've written for
Hmm.
all these years than I would be if I wasn't. Especially with drafts. Just finish the draft.
Yeah.
Doesn't I've had first scenes from so many people of I don't know how to do this voice, but can you read this first scene? And I do read it and I do note it, but then they never send me a full play. And I don't want to be rude
Uh,
and say, um, no, I'm not going to read one scene. Send me a full bloody thing. But until you write the full bloody thing, that it can never be done.
yeah.
And whether that is prose or whether that's a play or a screenplay, just get it written. When it comes to the plays and the screenplays, it's better. It's easier with screenplays because obviously you'll have the film at your fingertips. But buy the screenplay, or people can do PDFs
Yeah.
online now, and watch the film at the same time and actually see how it's written. It's harder with plays, but
Hmm.
if you go see a play and you thought it was great, buy the play. They obviously want your money, and
Yeah.
so a lot of play theatres have the play script in the. But the more you read and read,
Hmm.
read and write, and I'm sorry for it being slightly dull advice, but there is nothing better.
Yeah.
Read voraciously and read different things. I I think it's actually made my prose reading a lot
Yeah.
worse, actually, my attention
Oh.
span, because I read so many plays
Yeah.
because every night or every 2 nights I have the satisfaction of it finishing. So that's that. And also just reading, it's a lot
Mm.
easier and quicker to read a play than it is a whole prose book novel. But just
Mm.
read and write. And yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So I said at the beginning, but I'll end the same way. Thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me.
It's been a pleasure, Rich.
Obviously, I wish you the best of luck with all the shows you've got coming up and all the wonderful events.
Yes.
I'll put all the links in the comments below so people can scroll down and click away. And I shall speak to you soon.